In the final years of the greatest war in history, nations that believed themselves to be allies quickly realized that some of their interests and values were vastly different. At the Yalta Conference in 1945, Winston Churchill, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Joseph Stalin met on common ground to discuss the post-war reorganization of Europe. Later, after the Nazi Party had surrendered entirely, the Big Three met again in Potsdam to debate punishment for Germany. It was at these conferences that tensions between the nations rose. Stalin was occupying Eastern and Central Europe, and had put in place a communist government in Poland, a country that the USA and UK wanted to be democratic. As the conferences came to a close, no one knew what the future would hold between the US and USSR superpowers. Here we have Douglas MacArthur, Joseph Stalin, Harry Truman, and Joseph McCarthy. So, what are your views on terrorism these days?
Terrorism is a real and present threat, as much as communism was in my day, and it needs to be eliminated immediately and in its entirety.
You think everything needs to be eliminated? You're just trigger happy.
Well, the domino theory of communism spreading was true, and is still an issue. Therefore terrorism is going to spread if we don't kill it off now.
Well, have you considered the terrorist side? Maybe they're trying to fix the flaws that they see. After World War II, Russia observed that capitalism led to violence and widespread dissatisfaction among the people of the United States. Your greed and selfishness could have been fixed by Marx's great communist ideas.
Communism took away aspiration and determination from your people. Just look at all your lazy citizens. The mighty U.S. capitalist economy is powered by aspirations.
Terrorism is still devastating to millions of people, and the U.S. needs to do something about it. Look at the Iraq War. Sometimes violence is necessary to protect your interests. I agree with former President Bush's decision to attack Iraq because of suspected nuclearization.
No. That war was all about oil. At the onset of the war, Iraq controlled all of its oil. Now, it's controlled by foreign investors, mainly the U.S.
The warmonger Americans are just weak. They couldn't defend 2 buildings in New York against terrorists. American attacked Iraq as a show of force and to scare the terrorists into submission.
We attacked because those slimy terrorists are everywhere. That guy over there has a beard and a backpack. Where's security? He's a threat. I knew he was a terrorist.
Not everyone with a beard is a terrorist. You should know, as many of the Americans on your list weren't communists. Racial profiling is wrong. Eisenhower promoted desegregation, and I support him. Terrorism needs to be dealt with carefully, Joseph, not radically with your crazy blacklists.
You all obviously have different opinions on the dangers of terrorism, but what do you think we need to do for a solution?
Nuke 'em. They can't kill anyone else if they're already dead.
That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? It's not worth the destruction of millions of lives.
Cough cough, says the guy that tried Japan.
Well, that's why I now believe firmly in containment, as my Truman Doctrine clearly states. If we keep them all in the Middle East, they can get us in the US.
Or you could just make yourself an iron curtain. Keep the enemy out, let no one in. Blockade your shipping in the Middle East, like we did with Berlin. Also, you could use the idea of brinkmanship to put everyone on alert and stop the opponent from making the first move, and use 5-year plans to boost industrial production to fortify the country.
But it's not that simple. We can just block everyone out. America needs allies when fighting a war using NATO and in your case the Warsaw Pact. Also, George Marshall's Marshall Plan protects us from the domino theory by aiding countries to prevent them from falling under communist rule, and thereby making them friendly towards us. Also Khrushchev, your fellow Russian, completely disagrees with you and was responsible for the partial de-Stalinization of the Soviet Union, for backing the progress of the early Soviet space program, and for several relatively liberal reforms in areas of domestic policy.
I completely agree, but don't forget to look for the hidden enemy. It is extremely important to create organizations such as HUAC to investigate communist influence within and outside the government. The NSA is doing a fine job of that.
I like many of the actions the US is currently taking. Working with willing and able states to end the threat of terrorism aligns with the Truman Doctrine. It also shows how the US is taking an approach like they did by using NATO. After World War II, the US formed an alliance with a whole slew of nations to unite against evil. The US has adopted this policy to combat the threat of terrorism. It shows that the US is willing to ally with other nations to intervene in worldly issues if necessary, and that's what the Truman Doctrine established. Providing humanitarian aid like the Berlin airlift is also good because the US helped other nations fight communism. Operation Action Endeavor is good because it intercepts weapons of mass destruction in the Mediterranean, thereby reducing the terrorist threat. It's a lot like containment in that it contains weapons from spreading across Europe and across the globe for that matter. The National Strategy for Homeland Security is good because it's a means of allying with foreign nations to conquer the threat of terrorism and to protect the United States. It's also a means of uniting the entire nation to fight terrorism.
I like a lot of what you're saying, Mr. Truman, but I take a more aggressive stance. I like the Patriot Act. American privacy needs to be sacrificed for the safety of this nation. Roving wiretaps, searches of business records, And conducting surveillance of people suspected of terrorist-related activities is the best defense possible against another terrorist attack, is the best defense to prevent terrorism. Keep adding to that list. There are more than 205. Keep up the subversion. Start putting cameras in bathrooms. And the war on terror, you might ask? Let's go. Keep charging until every terrorist who roams this earth is buried.
We're on the same page. Something you forgot to talk about was President Obama's drone strikes. If you ask me, it's a good system. It's an expeditious approach to eliminating terrorists. Yeah, it kills some civilians occasionally, but every pro has a con. Let's get the military going even more.
I disagree with all of you guys. If you endorsed increased government regulation, you'd stop meddling in other countries' business. You'd pour all your resources and capital into helping your own government. People are homeless, jobless, and going hungry in your land of the free. Stop squandering money on drones. Stop Operation Action Endeavor. Stop all of it. Communism is the way to go because it helps everyone in your country. You guys are a bunch of greedy capitalists.
Unlike the war they had fought together, World War II, the Cold War, in between the two superpowers, the US and USSR, involved no direct conflict or hot war. Both sides, despite building thousands of nuclear weapons, never fired any. The two sides armed different countries near their opponents with multiple weapons of mass destruction. For the US, it was Turkey, and for the USSR, they put missiles in Cuba. Through spreading their influences, the US and USSR made the Cold War a global conflict. If either side had pulled the trigger on one of their nuclear warheads, the entire world was at risk for nuclear fallout. Today, with the war on terror continued by the US and NATO, the world has once again been involved in conflicts that do not directly pertain to them. There are new tactics, with drones, special forces, and insurgent military campaigns. Many of these are continuations of military advancements and developments made in the Cold War, like the Green Berets, CIA, and surveillance flights. The Cold War thus can be applied to the war on terror we wage today, and can offer us some valuable aid in defeating terrorism. Thank you all for sharing your ideas, Cold Warriors, and hopefully we have all learned something today. We'll see you next time.